What if I told you that you could become emotionally invincible? That no insult, no betrayal, no rejection or gossip would ever hurt you again, not because you've become cold or numb, but because you've awakened to a deeper truth about human nature, about perception, and about your own power. That's exactly what Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor of Rome, discovered, and it's one of the most powerful secrets ever written down by a human being. A secret that's been hiding in plain sight for close to 2,000 years. And once you truly understand it, not just intellectually, but existentially, something inside you changes. You stop being a victim of other people's words, actions, and opinions, but you stop giving them the power to disturb your peace. You become untouchable, not because you've armored up, but because you've realized you were never broken in the first place. Let's start with the question, why do we feel hurt by others? Why does criticism sting? Why does betrayal cut so deep? Why does a stranger's comment online ruin your entire day? The Stoics had an answer, and it's not what you think. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been." It sounds too simple, almost dismissive. But it's actually a philosophical nuke. He's not saying you should pretend you're not hurt, but he's saying that the feeling of being hurt comes not from the event itself, but from your judgment about the event.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is the core Stoic insight. It's not what happens to you that hurts, it's what you think about what happens. It's the meaning you assign to it. Someone insults you. Do you automatically feel pain? Only if, deep down, you believe what they said. Only if you've already given their opinion power over your sense of self. Betrayal only stings if you expected permanence in what was always impermanent. Rejection only wounds you if you believed someone else controlled your worth. But what if they don't? What if the pain isn't being done to you, but being generated by you? And this is where it gets wild. Because if you can generate it, you can also stop generating it. But Marcus Aurelius wasn't just giving us motivational quotes. He was giving us a blueprint for mental freedom. When he wrote his Meditations, he wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing to himself, to remind himself, day after day, that the only thing he actually controls is his own mind. Not the world, not other people, just his judgments, and his responses, his choices. And if that's true for a Roman emperor, it's definitely true for us. So here's the first shift. Stop blaming other people for how you feel. It doesn't mean they're not responsible for their actions. It means you are responsible for your interpretation of those actions. And that distinction is everything. It puts the power back in your hands. It gives you agency. Because now, instead of being at the mercy of what others say or do, you become a kind of philosophical black hole. Nothing gets in unless you let it in. But how do we do that? How do we stop letting people hurt us? Marcus gives us the key. He says, you always have the power to have no opinion. That might be the most underrated piece of wisdom in human history. Think about it, someone mocks you. Your ego wants to fight back. But what if you just didn't have an opinion? What if you didn't need to defend yourself? What if you saw their words as just sounds in the air, expressions of their own state of mind, not reflections of your worth? Can you feel the freedom in that? This is where we go deeper. Because Marcus isn't telling us to suppress our pain. He's telling us to see through it, and to realize that pain is often a signal not of truth, but of attachment. Attachment to our image, attachment to expectations, attachment to the illusion of control. And the moment we question those attachments, the pain starts to dissolve. Not because we pushed it down, but because we disarmed it. Let me ask you something. How much of your emotional suffering comes from trying to control things you cannot control? But be honest, how much time do you spend thinking about what they think of you? What they said, what they might say, how they'll react. You're trying to manage their perception of you, but that's their mind. Not yours. You don't own that. You never did. And the more energy you spend there, the further you drift from your own peace. Marcus knew this. He said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's the moment of power. When you realize that the story you're telling yourself is optional, not mandatory, and you can rewrite it. You can go from, they insulted me, so I must be worthless, to, they insulted me, and that tells me something about them. Not me. You can go from, they betrayed me, so I can never trust again, to, they betrayed me, and now I see more clearly who they are. You can go from, they rejected me, so I must be unlovable, to, they rejected me, and that frees me to find something more aligned. Do you see the shift? It's not denial. It's discernment. It's reclaiming your narrative. And it's not just about defense. It's about transcendence. Marcus didn't just want to be unbothered, he wanted to be wise. He knew that every insult, every injury, every ego wound was a chance to practice virtue, to become stronger, not harder, softer, not weaker, more compassionate, not more bitter. Because here's the paradox, when you stop being hurt by others, you don't become cold. You become invulnerably kind. You become loving without needing love in return. You become generous without needing recognition. Because you're no longer operating from lack. You're full. You're free. But here's where it gets really deep. Marcus believed that we are all part of the same cosmic organism, but that when someone wrongs you, they're not just failing you, they're failing themselves. They are living out of alignment with nature, with reason, with the divine order. And your job is not to retaliate, but to reflect, to be the mirror that shows them, through your steadiness, that there is another way to live. He says, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Think about that. When someone hurts you, the instinct is to hurt them back. But that just makes you like them. It drags you down to the same level of unconsciousness. But if you stay centered, if you stay kind, if you stay in your integrity, you rise above. You don't just protect your peace. You elevate the moment. You show them what strength really looks like. So here's the challenge. Can you let someone insult you and not react? Can you let someone disappoint you and not spiral? Can you choose to stay rooted in your own values no matter what the world throws at you? Because that's the real test. Not whether you can avoid pain, but whether you can transform it. Whether you can use it as fuel for wisdom. Whether you can alchemize it into something higher. This is the Stoic superpower, not to be unfeeling, but to be unshakable, not to avoid hurt, but to transcend it, to see it, to understand it, and then to let it pass through you like wind through a tree. And guess what? The more you practice this, the more it becomes natural. You start to expect less from others, not in a cynical way, but in a realistic way. You stop needing people to behave a certain way for you to be okay, and you stop outsourcing your peace. You bring it home. You stop saying, "They made me feel this way," and you start saying, "I noticed this feeling arise and I chose how to relate to it." That's a small shift with massive consequences. That's emotional sovereignty. So next time someone tries to hurt you, pause. Don't react. Observe. Ask, what am I believing right now that's creating this pain? What story am I telling myself about what this means? And is that story true? Because if it's not, you can drop it. And in that moment, you become free. Imagine this. You're in the middle of chaos. Someone is shouting, pointing fingers, throwing blame. And yet you're still, calm, unmoved. Not because you're suppressing your emotions, not because you're better than them, but because you've built something they can't touch, an inner fortress. A shield that can't be pierced by insults, rejection, betrayal, or judgment. Not a wall that closes you off, but a strength that holds you open. That's what Marcus Aurelius was building inside himself every single day. And he left us the blueprint. The Stoic shield isn't made of steel. It's made of wisdom. And once you understand how to forge it, you'll never walk into the world the same way again. Let's be real. Life will test you. People will misunderstand you, criticize you, betray you. That's not the glitch. That's the game. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had people plotting his downfall, questioning his decisions, challenging his power. And yet, in the pages of Meditations, we don't see anger or bitterness. We see a man returning, again and again, to reason, to presence, to truth. Why? Because he knew the secret: no one can harm your soul without your permission. Your character, your integrity, is the only thing you truly own. Everything else, your reputation, your image, your possessions, is outside of your full control. So how do you build this kind of strength? How do you become unshakable? It starts with clarity. Marcus trained his mind like a warrior trains his body. He questioned every assumption, every reaction, every judgment. He didn't trust his first thought, he examined it. When someone wronged him, he would ask, is this really harm? Or is it just unpleasant? That's a powerful distinction. There's a huge difference between pain and damage. Pain is part of life. It comes and goes. But damage only happens when we attach to the pain, when we let it define us, when we believe it has the power to destroy our peace. So ask yourself, what if most of the things I call harm are just discomforts I haven't learned to hold? What if the insult isn't the dagger, but my belief in it is? This is how the Stoic shield is built, by learning to see rightly. Marcus said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not a motivational quote. That's a fundamental shift in how you live. Because once you truly get that, once you embody that, you stop demanding that life be easy. You stop expecting people to be perfect. You start training your response instead of blaming their behavior. And that's where the shield begins to form. But clarity alone isn't enough. You also need compassion. This is what people miss about Stoicism. It's not cold. It's not emotionless. It's deeply human. Marcus saw every human being as part of the same organism. He reminded himself that when someone acts with cruelty or ignorance, it's not evil, it's confusion. It's sickness. They're out of alignment with nature, with truth, with their own soul. And they don't need your hatred, they need your example. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, but none of them can hurt me." Why? Because he saw through the illusion. He knew that people don't act from malice, they act from fear, from pain, from misunderstanding. And when you see that clearly, you don't take it personally. You respond from a deeper place. So here's a practical exercise. When someone offends you, pause and ask, what pain might they be carrying? What fear is driving this behavior? Not to excuse it, but to understand it. Because understanding is the first step to liberation. Not just for them, for you. Now, let's talk about the most powerful part of the Stoic shield, choice. Marcus Aurelius believed that in every moment, no matter what's happening, you have one ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose your response. You can choose patience. You can choose dignity. You can choose stillness. Even if someone is screaming in your face, even if life is falling apart, you can choose how you relate to it. And that choice is your shield. But choice requires training. You can't wait for the moment of crisis to start building your strength. You prepare in the quiet moments. You rehearse in your mind. You journal. You reflect. You meditate. You remind yourself daily that your peace is internal, not external. That your value is intrinsic, not assigned by others. That your purpose is to live in alignment with nature, not to be liked, praised, or understood. So ask yourself, am I living to be approved by others or to be proud of myself? Am I chasing validation or practicing virtue? This is the Stoic path, not easy, but unbreakable. And here's the paradox. The more you build this shield, the less you need to use it. Because you start to attract different energy. People feel your calm. They sense your clarity. Your stillness becomes contagious. And even when people do try to hurt you, they don't succeed. Because there's nothing to hit. You're not reactive. You're not fragile. You're not playing the same game. And even when it does sting, because yes, we're still human, you don't spiral. You don't collapse. You return to yourself. You reflect. You recalibrate. And you keep going. You become like the rock Marcus described, the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. That's not a fantasy. That's a decision, a practice, a way of being. So here's your invitation. What kind of fortress are you building inside yourself? Is it reactive or reflective? Is it brittle or flexible? Is it based on ego or on essence? You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be intentional. You need to choose again and again to come back to what matters, and to question your assumptions, to hold your judgments lightly, to see others not as enemies, but as teachers, to see pain not as punishment, but as practice. Every insult is a test. Every rejection is a redirection. Every betrayal is a course correction. And every moment is a chance to say, this is not about them. This is about me, about who I want to be, about how I choose to live. That's how you become untouchable, not by hardening your heart, but by strengthening your soul. So the next time someone tries to hurt you, remember Marcus, then remember the shield, and ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my dignity? Is this worth my energy? If the answer is no, drop it. Let it pass. Return to stillness, because that's the final truth. They only win if you give them your peace. They only succeed if you believe their story. But you don't have to. You can let go. You can rise above. You can be free. And when you finally understand this, not just in your mind, but in your bloodstream, in the marrow of your being, you begin to walk through life in a completely different way. You're no longer flinching at every opinion. You're not bending under the weight of someone else's mood. You don't crumble when someone misjudges you or fails to love you the way you hoped. You're not playing that game anymore. You've stepped off the field. You've seen that most of the emotional wounds we carry came not from the world itself, but from our unconscious agreement with the world's illusions. It's not the words or the actions that harm us, it's the meaning we assign them, the stories we wrap around them, so the way we clutch those interpretations like they're absolute truth. But now you see through it. You see that your peace was never hidden. It was buried beneath layers of reactivity, pride, and insecurity. And when you let those layers fall away, like old armor that no longer fits, you don't become weaker, you become more alive, more awake, more you than you've ever been. You begin to understand on a lived level that no one can truly hurt you, because no one can enter your mind without your consent. You realize that your self-worth is not a mirror held by others, it's a flame that burns from within, sustained by your own choices, your own values, your own clarity. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop defending and start discerning. You stop trying to win arguments and start choosing peace. Even in the face of betrayal, you can meet it with wisdom. Even in the face of cruelty, you can meet it with composure. And this doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because now you're not controlled by the weather of other people's emotions. You've become the mountain, and when storms come, as they always will, you don't rage against them. You don't collapse under their weight. You simply remain present, rooted, unmoved, not because you're numb, but because you're free. Because you've remembered Marcus Aurelius' secret that the only real harm is the harm you choose to believe in. And you don't have to believe it anymore.